pleasure of introducing Dr. Carrie Triepel. She is a graduate twice from the University of Virginia, once for her undergraduate studies, then again 4 years later from medical school. She is a diehard fan of Jefferson and limited government. She then spent 5 years in the Air Force and has over 100 hours in the back seat of a F-15 Eagle fighter jet. I'd say she has some friends in high places. She did her residency training in orthopedic surgery at Wake Forest University and her hand fellowship at another haunt of our founding fathers in Boston. She's been back in Virginia since 2009. She's here to tell us what Obamacare proponents are saying and what the truth is. I'm proud to welcome my friend Carrie Triepel. Dr. Carrie Triepel.
Thank y'all very much. I'm going to move this back because I'm going to be wandering around a little bit.
Okay, I'll get it for you.
That's all right. I'm fine. First off, thank you very much. Before I start, I do want to do a shout out and a thank you to Dr. Wani Montero, founder of the Chesapeake Medical Clinic and Montero Medical Mission. Thank you very, very much. So, most of the times when I get these talks, I've given a few and I've changed a lot of slides. For any of you that have been to any of my former, I've changed a lot because a lot has changed. And I would normally encourage you to interrupt me with questions. We are actually going to be filming this. You see Steve Gold right here. We're going to be filming this hopefully for distribution in national channels. So if you wouldn't mind holding your questions to the end, and hopefully I will not go on too long. I feel at this point that I could give a 3-day seminar on PPACA, Obamacare, whatever you want to call it. So to try to reduce this to 30 minutes or less is going to be a challenge in and of itself. So without further ado, here we go. So, the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. What is it? Depending on the font that you use, it's anywhere between 900 and 3,000 pages. It is the largest expansion of federal bureaucracy in the United States history. It adds 159 new federal commissions, agencies, boards, committees, over 4,000 new healthcare regulations, and 150,000 new federal employees, up to 16,500 of which may belong to the IRS. I'll briefly read this from the founder of the most successful experiment in history, Benjamin Franklin. To relieve the misfortunes of our fellow creatures is concurring with the deity. It is godlike, but if we provide encouragement for laziness and supports for folly, may we not be found fighting against the order of God and nature, which perhaps has appointed want and misery as proper punishments for and cautions against, as well as necessary consequences of idleness and extravagance. Whenever we attempt to amend the scheme of providence and interfere with government of the world, we need be very circumspect, lest we do more harm than good. So why am I here? I'm a full-time practicing hand surgeon. I work 60 hours a week. I have 4 children under the age of 10. I'm here because I'm getting paid. No, not really. I hope to be getting paid. I think you'll discover by the end, I'm better at hand surgery than I am at public speaking. I plan to run for office. No. Hell no. Again, I am much better at fixing carpal tunnels, distal radius fractures, maybe even a complex elbow fracture than running for public office. I'll get more patients this way. Again, not really. I'll get some patients this way, and trust me, I will lose patients with some of my views, I'm sure. I'll endear myself to all referring physicians. Again, I would say that's hit or miss. I am here because I care about my patients and I care about my country, plain and simple. What I hope to accomplish is to briefly discuss the SCOTUS, or Supreme Court of the United States ruling, briefly, because let's face it, that's in the past. I want to discuss what the proponents of PPACA are saying and try to find things that we can discuss with our neighbors and friends who may like PPACA, things that we can refute, and things that we can, if there are, agree upon. And then I'm going to discuss briefly what the PPACA proponents aren't saying. So on June 28th, I was in my office seeing patients. I knew the ruling was coming out at 10:30. I was getting ready to drive to Charlottesville to pick up my daughter from a camp, and I was like, oh, I just want to get through the patients, because as soon as I hear, I know I'm not going to be able to concentrate. Fortunately, when the ruling came out, somebody came in that had a partial fingertip amputation. I had to numb them up and nibble down the finger a little bit, so that was a good way to kind of get out some of my excess energy. I'm sorry, I'm a surgeon, okay? So I'm a surgeon. So the 4 issues before the Supreme Court. If the health care law constitutes a tax, does a court have jurisdiction? Well, yeah, they do. That's what they said. The biggie, is the individual mandate constitutional? And the big argument in front of the Supreme Court was supposedly all based upon the Commerce Clause. You had two schools of thought. You had Ken Cuccinelli, who basically said, you can't force people into the insurance arena, that's regulating inactivity. Then you had Martha Coakley, she's the Attorney General for Massachusetts, who said, all people are going to use health care, therefore you should regulate it. But of course, we got thrown a curveball, and Obamacare and the individual mandate was held to be constitutional under the taxation laws of the Constitution. So, whether we like it or not, it's a tax, and I figure we should use this to our advantage. Because the next time someone is trying to sell an infringement upon our rights with a tax, it's going to be a much harder sell. So, if the individual mandate is not constitutional, can the rest of the law survive? That's really kind of a non-issue. And this 4th issue, which now you're beginning to hear a lot more about, which we weren't hearing about before, but is very important, is the law's expansion of Medicaid an unconstitutional intrusion on the states? The argument that was used before the Supreme Court was that the expansion of Medicaid was basically coercing the states, because the federal government wants to say, if you don't expand Medicaid, we're taking away your funding. And that Congress is going to try to achieve something that they don't normally have the power to do, which is expanding Medicaid. Fortunately, Medicaid expansion was ruled unconstitutional, and we can now keep the current levels in federal funding or expand. Now, recently there was a national governors meeting up in Williamsburg, and at least 6, and I think it's now up to 8 governors have said, we are not going to expand Medicaid. There are several others to the right who have said, we will, including the increasingly bankrupt California, which shouldn't really surprise anyone. And there are at least 27 states at the current time that are undecided. Now let's look at Virginia. Currently, there are 1 million patients that are on Medicaid. It's 17.3% of the state's fund. That's already a sizable chunk. In 2019, if we expand Medicaid, we're going to increase enrollment by 41%. The budget is going to increase from 17.3% to 30%, all on Medicaid. It gets better. Physicians are reimbursed 60 cents on the dollar of the cost of care, not charges of the cost. So, we're going to have a large increase in the tax burden on us, whether it's on a federal level, a state level, or both. We're not going to have increased access for our patients. Coverage does not equal care. There was actually a study that came out in 2010, I was just made aware of yesterday, on major surgical procedures, and found that being on Medicaid was associated with longer length of hospital stay, higher hospital costs, and here's the most important thing, higher risk of death. We need to get government and insurance out of the way of our care.